Oh, sorry, I was muted. Just for everyone's information, Kim is sending her regrets today, but otherwise we do have quorum.
And Brenda Schrey is unable to join us as well.
Okay.
We shall wait till 9 o'clock, Tara?
Yes, please.
People are here right on time or even early today. This is great. Lots of anticipation for this meeting, obviously.
I'm just going to...
Oh. My computer says it's 9 o'clock. Shall we proceed, Tara?
Sounds good. Thank you.
I will start the recording here.
Thank you so much. I'd like to welcome everyone today to today's Ag Advisory meeting for June 20th, 2024. Thanks so much for attending. It looks like we have a full house, so that's absolutely great. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 9 a.m. this morning. Starting off, any declarations of interest for today's meeting? Please raise your hand if so. Seeing none, if any should arise during the course of the meeting, just please let us know at that time. We have one delegation today, ecological offsetting presentation from Natalie and Michael from the Planning Department. Are they ready to proceed?
Yes, we are ready to go.
Thank you.
I have your presentation handy, Natalie, if you're...
Okay, great, thanks. I should be able
difficulty.
to share my screen here.
Perfect.
Okay, is everybody able to see that?
Yes, looks great.
Perfect, thank you. I will pass it over to Michael to start us off then.
Perfect. Thanks, Natalie. Good morning, everyone. Good to be on the committee and presenting. It's a pleasure to meet you all. Today, Natalie and I will be talking about ecological offsetting and developing a policy for offsetting within Grey County for ecological matters. So a little bit of background. Natalie, are you controlling the slides?
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
So a bit of background. Through consultation with residents and visitors here in Grey County, it's clear that natural heritage features and areas are highly valued within the county. Protection and enhancement of these features is broadly supported. Recent legislative changes affecting the review and approval authority for natural heritage policies has changed roles from the conservation authorities to the county. And this makes natural heritage review and approvals for development proposals somewhat challenging, as natural heritage policies and guidelines are not yet fully developed at the county compared to some conservation authorities, such as an ecological offsetting policy and procedure. Ecological offsetting has been utilized informally for years by environmental planners and ecologists and other organizations responsible for natural heritage review and approvals. Other entities, such as some conservation authorities, municipalities like Barrie, other counties like Peterborough, have developed offsetting policies and procedures to support development proposals and process requests for offsetting. To explore some options for natural heritage review, County Official Plan Amendment 11 added offsetting wording to Section 7 of Recolor Grey, the Grey County's official plan. This policy wording outlines that the county can consider and generally support offsetting policies developed by other entities within the county. With the county now responsible for natural heritage review and approvals for itself and its member municipalities, it may be an appropriate time for us to develop our own formal offsetting policy and procedure.
So what is ecological offsetting? It's where environmental or ecological impacts are incurred in one area, such as the removal of woodlands, and compensated for in another area, such as replanting woodlands on site or on another property. It aims to achieve an overall net gain, it aims to achieve overall net loss and promote overall net gains of natural features within the broader ecosystem, whereby a feature is offset and compensated for an equal or greater ecological value. It's considered the last step under the mitigation hierarchy of avoid, minimize, mitigate, and then offset. Offsetting is not used to justify the removal of features, and it's not considered for some features due to the significance or sensitivity of the feature. For example, like provincially significant wetlands and sensitive wetland types, such as bogs and fens. There are instances where the province uses ecological offsetting. One example would be the permitting process to remove a butternut tree, which is an endangered species, in exchange for planting butternut trees elsewhere.
Yeah, so the purpose of an ecological offsetting policy is basically to develop standardized criteria for offsetting proposals. We are seeking to establish consistent, defensible policy that will be critical to successful implementation and public support of this work. Natural features will be assigned standardized monetary values based on the ecological sensitivity, natural functions, ecosystem services, as well as social, cultural, and economic values being impacted through natural feature removals. For example, if the offsetting proposal is to remove a portion of significant woodland or other wetland feature, the monetary value for the reestablishment of these features will generally increase if the feature is more ecologically sensitive, provides high value ecosystem services and functions, or has impacts to social values such as recreation. The development of an offsetting policy can result in cash in lieu processes, a purely developer driven and finance process, a third party conducting offsetting works on behalf of the developer or county, such as Ducks Unlimited Canada or conservation authorities who are familiar with conducting offsetting projects. All the different policy options for administering offsetting can and will be explored when researching and developing what may be the most appropriate offsetting process within the county. Grey County would not be the first to implement an offsetting policy either within the county's borders. Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority has an existing offsetting policy that is currently being utilized within the county. It is conducted using standardized criteria, metrics, and can be used to fulfill the requirements under their regulation under the Conservation Authorities Act.
So on the slide, there are two examples of wetland creation projects. The one on the left is a nutrient management pond that was constructed by Ducks Unlimited, and the other is a wetland project by AuSable Bayfield Conservation. Both of these wetlands, they function alongside productive agricultural fields, and they demonstrate the ability to create wetlands in proximity to other land use types. So these are potentials to be offsetting projects, but an offsetting policy is not meant to take quality, productive farmland out of production in exchange for allowing development in settlement areas.
So when would offsetting even be considered? It's a good question. Offsetting is commonly used for larger development applications, such as subdivision and condominium proposals. These types of applications take up a larger area, and as such, the natural features are commonly proposed for removal through the development process. Similarly, proposals for new and expanded licenses for aggregate extraction under the Aggregate Resources Act may be considered for offsetting as well. These applications frequently require removal of natural heritage features to access the largest amount of extractable area. Offsetting is generally not utilized or requested for smaller proposals such as minor variance applications, and it would only really be triggered under a Planning Act application. So like the building permits, stuff like that wouldn't be subject to ecological offsetting. Sometimes offsetting cannot be considered due to scenarios where provincial and federal legislation would not be supportive, such as offsetting fish habitat, which would need the Department of Fisheries and Oceans Canada approval, or DFO, as some of you might know them, or habitat of endangered and threatened species, which would need the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks approval, the MECP. Like I said, as of right permissions through a zoning bylaw are also generally not subject to offsetting. So we're talking about, building permit applications and a few other different types of developments that wouldn't be subject to offsetting.
So impacts on natural heritage features are usually inevitable for larger developments, such as subdivisions and gravel pits. So there are some opportunities that come with offsetting. It can provide a means for features to be removed and reestablished in more appropriate areas for long-term protection and overall enhancement. It aims to achieve conservation gains by integrating environmental and social costs of biodiversity loss in planning decisions. It would also set out clear requirements for developers through the planning process. It would improve application review processes for natural heritage protection considerations. And lastly, it supports corporate goals in climate action, healthy communities, and forest management.
So a few challenges with ecological offsetting are some features cannot be offset due to their high sensitivity, rarity, and functionality. A good example of this is significant valley lands, where some features of importance cannot be fully offset appropriately and should not be considered for offsetting due to the risk of not being able to recreate a similar functioning ecosystem type. If offsetting works are poorly completed, not monitored, or not enforced, this may seem like a way to undermine the existing natural heritage protection policies within the county's official plan and local official plans. Although the provincial government has not stated planning authorities cannot use offsetting as a tool, they also have no formal policies or standard approach to guide how offsetting should take place in Ontario. A common challenge with offsetting projects is finding the lands that can accommodate the creation of a feature such as woodland or wetland. The lands must be able to support the specific kind of feature being offset. A general rule is to strive to have the offset feature created as close as possible to where the feature is originally being removed from, preferably on the same parcel proposed for development and as soon as possible. Offsetting generally has mixed outlooks as well on its effectiveness and potential impacts, not only to natural features in the environment, but also social, economic, and cultural values of public and Indigenous communities. Offsetting policy may increase administrative workload as well of the county staff, with the requirement for ongoing monitoring and potential maintenance responsibility post-development. What is currently an informal offsetting process would become a formal offsetting policy. This could be seen as setting restrictions and increasing specific requirements for developers who want to remove natural heritage features to accommodate their proposed development.
At this stage, we have like a proposed framework for the policy. So the policy will apply throughout the county. It will only be applicable for certain applications and for certain types of features. Before offsetting is proposed and or considered, an environmental impact study must be completed in accordance with the mitigation hierarchy and demonstrate no negative impact. Only once this is completed will a separate compensation plan be requested. There will be a defined and standard replacement ratio for the feature. For example, a 2-to-1 ratio for replanting trees greater than 10 centimeters diameter at breast height, or for the aerial extent of the natural feature in the case of wetlands, for example.
So a few next steps when we're developing these offsetting policies, staff are seeking direction from our council to proceed with a consultation framework, which we've already received. Staff believe that this policy could aid in their reviews and provide clear guidance for developers who may need to propose natural heritage feature removals through the development process. Currently, natural heritage features are proposed for removal without the need for offsetting, resulting in losses of natural cover and degradation of the existing natural heritage system, with essentially no option to ask for feature reestablishment. Natural heritage offsetting is generally only applied in certain situations and cannot be applicable in some other situations. Staff seek to explore when offsetting is most appropriate and when it should not be considered. We also plan on initiating consultation with other organizations and stakeholders to address any specific outstanding concerns for Grey County implementing an offsetting policy, procedure, and guidance. That's kind of why we're here today. Staff are seeking input from the Agricultural Advisory Committee on the potential offsetting policy.
A few slides back, we presented the draft framework, and we would like to get this group's feedback on the details to be included within that framework. Some guiding questions on the slide include, do you have previous experience with offsetting or participating in an offsetting project, either formally or informally through an organization like Ducks Unlimited? Should both woodlands and wetlands be considered? What replacement ratios should be considered? Should cash in lieu be considered? Where should offsetting occur? For example, primary lands versus municipal lands, and any other questions you have or comments. We'd be happy to take any feedback at this time. And if you'd prefer to think on it a little bit, or if you wish to write down your thoughts, any feedback can also be sent to ecology@grey.ca. And that's the end of our presentation. So we're happy to take any questions or comments at this time. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Natalie and Michael. That was an excellent presentation. Certainly a lot of thought-provoking thoughts in there. I already see Scott has his hand up, but just stage your questions and comments and the answers to the feedback, and we'll put your hand up when you want to speak. And I see Scott first.
Thanks, Chair Smith, and thanks, Michael and Natalie, for that presentation. I just wanted to make it clear to the Ag Advisory Committee that this is still very much in the ideation stage. We've had initial discussions with County Council and initial discussions with the Planning and Economic Development Advisory Committee, but this is not a finished product yet. And I realize it's a lot to take in for this morning, and certainly we'd be happy to hear any initial feedback you have. But I think staff would also commit to coming back to this committee once we have a draft framework in place, sort of on paper, so to speak, that we could send to you in advance. You know, I think Michael and Natalie have done a great job of hitting the highlights on what that framework could build off. But I want to make it clear, this isn't your only chance, and we really value the feedback of this group. So more discussions to come after today.
Thanks so much for that clarification, Scott. Simon.
Thank you, Laurie. Thanks to the committee that did the presentation, and thank you, Scott, for your careful chosen words. I generally like what I heard. My question always arises, and I'm very much a country dweller, and I come in when I come into town, especially in newer subdivisions. I always look around what has been done here to do some good work. With good works, I understand preserving green spaces and possibly creating wetlands, or at least containing the runoff, and a whole bunch of good stuff that you can possibly think of. So if that's all taken in account, and the phrase no offsetting or mitigation on Class 1 and 2 farmland or the best in the area, we have employed that for a long time. So that's all adhered of. I'm going to digest this thing a little more in the next couple of days, and if there's questions that arise in my mind, I will certainly get in touch with somebody. And if you just a website that came up there, I'll maybe just pass it along later on, or I can get back to you. But thanks again for the in-depth presentation.
Thank you, Simon. Any other questions and comments? Scott first, please. You're muted.
Thanks, Laurie. Just one of the questions was, should cash in lieu be considered? Can members of the planning department tell us how cash would be utilized, and how, what sort of ratio of cash as opposed to the replacement of trees, we would look at? Would the cash be used to plant trees on municipally owned properties, or how would we utilize it, I guess is my question. Thanks.
Thanks, Scott, and through you, Chair. Yeah, we haven't figured out all the details of a potential cash in lieu policy. Of course, it gets a little convoluted when you're developing, kind of monetary values for these features. How do you assess the value of a woodland, and what type of woodland is it? How do you assess the value of a wetland, and what type of wetland is it? There have been, certain different monetary values that have been used for a standard hectareage of wetland, such as Toronto Region Conservation Authority and a few others. Nottawasaga Valley has their own ecological offsetting policy established, and they have set monetary values for certain features. But basically, we would be doing the same here at the county. We would be assessing the monetary value, and then we'd be collecting that monetary value based on how much of these features need to be removed and how much needs to be reestablished. So usually there's also standard compensation rates. For instance, if you're taking out 1 hectare of significant woodlands, you may have to replace at a 2-to-1 ratio. So then, to remove 1 hectare of woodlands, you have to replace it with 2 hectares. And then basically we would be collecting the money based on that 2 hectares that they have to put in. And another one of your questions is where do we put these features, right? What lands are available to be planted on? That's also not clear yet. We strive for the developer to plant on the parcel that they're proposing. So if there is, an open space on the lot that they're proposing, then maybe some trees can go in there, parkland. We're also considering municipal lands as well. If the municipality has extra lands to support ecological offsetting proposals, then that's great. If not, then the county could potentially use that money to hire external organization to do the works on our behalf. So the conservation authorities have tree planting programs. Ducks Unlimited Canada, alternative land use systems. They all have somewhat familiarity with conducting these projects. So there is a lot of consultation to happen still, and we're not 100% sure of what it's going to look like. But Natalie and I will come up with kind of the best plan possible and put it forward for your guys' viewing pleasure, as well as council's kind of decisions. So we'll be coming back at a later date with more details, but those are some of the potential options and what the monetary value might look like.
Thanks, Michael. Any follow-up, Scott? Are you good?
No, I'm good on that part. I might have another question, but I'll wait in the queue. Thanks.
I just wanted to read something that Brenda Schrey sent when she said that she was unable to join us today. She said, I don't think cash in lieu should be allowed because most developers would take that route, and then Grey County has lost valuable ecosystem services. The only way cash in lieu would work is if there's a county division which uses that cash to set up replacement projects, which that sounds like it's going to happen. And she says yes to include woodland and wetlands. So those are her comments. Paul, please.
Yes, thank you very much for the presentation. I guess my question is, and maybe expand on a little bit, is what exemptions do farmers have or agricultural operations have in the sense of granaries, driveways, sometimes they're placed in certain areas where this might be in a situation. So I don't know if there's any policy around that. I know sometimes the conservation authorities do have a little bit of exemption for the agricultural side of things. So I don't know if there's any comments there.
Sure, through you, Chair, and thanks, Paul, for your question. Basically, anything that's a lot of record or as of right usage. So if they're building something, needing a building permit without the need to trigger a planning application, then they can basically do that without being subject to this ecological offsetting policy. So that could be a driveway, an access road, anything like that doesn't trigger a planning application, like a minor variance or a zoning bylaw amendment or anything like that. This offsetting procedure is pretty much strictly for anything that triggers a planning application. So anything that doesn't trigger a planning act application is pretty much not subject to the offsetting policy. There are certain ones that we are looking at still, such as the minor exemption kind of permit through the tree forest management bylaw here at the county. So large clearings of trees where someone's proposing hectares and hectares of woodland removal that could be subject to offsetting, as well as some of the NEC development permits. We may also request offsetting. It depends on if the NEC can take that into consideration or not, because they also don't have policies for offsetting. So this is why we're doing a lot of this external kind of communication and consultation is can we even do these in the NEC area? So a lot more to come, but yeah, there are some certain situations where offsetting would not be requested, specifically from anything that doesn't trigger a planning application. There's nothing specific necessarily for agricultural uses that we're looking at yet, but if you wanted to provide comments on some situations where you think, hey, this is just standard farming practice or something like that, then we can always consider that as well when drafting up this policy.
Thank you, Michael. Paul, you follow up?
Yeah, so there are sometimes there are certain planning circumstances that are triggered into the planning with C4s and Grey Highlands. Sometimes there may be other circumstances where there's a larger barn with a setback or nutrient management circumstances where there does trigger that, but I guess we'll sort of work through that in the sense of, and I'm only thinking, broad base in the sense of what if or what happens and that sort of thing. But leave it at that, because I know sometimes circumstances do arise for the agricultural side where there is a planning application for certain things, right? So,
right, yeah.
Thanks, Paul. Gail, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And my first thing was cash in lieu as well, along with Scott Mackey's in the TBM Town of the Blue Mountains. Developers are always wanting to do cash in lieu immediately, and it's anywhere between 1% and 5%. So sometimes, we get a lot of cash in lieu, but then nothing ever happens. So it just builds the fund. And the same thing with the NVCA, they did implement their wetland policy, and I can't remember when that was. I was the chair of the NVCA, and I sat there for 8 years. So I would like to go back to the CAO of NVCA and ask some questions about the wetland policy, only because I know there was a lot of controversy on it, and there was a lot of issues with wetlands. So I just know a little bit about all that area being on NVCA, but the same thing with the Niagara Escarpment. We have in TBM and in Grey Highlands a lot of NEC, and I know they're doing some policy changes right now. So maybe this is a good time to interact with NEC, Grey County, so that when they're doing their planning and doing some policy changes, that these things do get included.
Great comments, Gail. Thank you. Does anyone Michael, do you want to speak to any of that?
Yeah, I agree with the comments provided. We are planning on sitting down with NEC and trying to figure that out. And I do agree with you. The cash in lieu can get a little, it's not my favorite process, that's for sure. As an ecologist, I don't necessarily like it, but if something does get developed, and similar with other offsetting policies that I've seen, one of the main things is to make sure that that money goes back in the ground as soon as possible, right? So if we are considering that, then that would be one of the first kind of policy stipulations, is this money has to purely either go into the ground or, somehow be used to support this ecological offsetting policy, whether that be land acquisition to find lands to plant the trees or create the wetlands. That's what the money would be going towards. There has been issues where the cash in lieu just gets too much and you end up with a massive amount of money and you don't know what to do with it. So that's also been an issue in the past with different ecological offsetting policies and procedures. So the other comment was, the county developing somewhat of a department to conduct these offsetting works. I seriously don't think we would be getting into that, because that would be requiring a lot of staff. A lot of different training, and it's just very complicated and potentially a financial burden to the county as well. So we're really looking to get the developer-driven process. That's kind of what we're pushing for. That's what I would like to see anyways. So that's kind of our preferred option, is to hand this this procedure and all the requirements strictly on the developer for they can conduct the offsetting works, and when completed, then we can give them the sign off, basically. So there are a lot of options. I don't know what it's going to look like at the end of the day, but we will come back with, you know, probably a cash in lieu option, which you can scour over and see if it pleases you. But you're right, it gets a little tricky, and I'm not a big fan of cash in lieu processes, but we do have to consider them.
Thanks, Michael. Blair, please. Need to unmute.
Thank you, Lori. I can see the good intent here. This is, I can see the intent that it's heading in the right direction. Only thing I see from a perspective of working through this process is who decides the value of a feature, who decides what's comparable. I see a lot of gray area and a lot of room for negotiation here, and maybe that's the intent. But I can also see it heading down roads where you might not want it to go. So good intent here, but that's just a red flag that I see.
That's great, Blair. Thank you. I think you've frozen on us. We lost him. So those were great comments. I think a lot of us were feeling that. So thank you to Blair for expressing it. Michael, did you want to speak to that at all?
Yeah, and through you, Chair, and thanks for your comment there, Blair. I think the monetary value is kind of one of the hardest things to come up with. If you look, or if you even Google it, what is the cost of 1 hectare of trees, you're going to get an answer anywhere from 6,000 to 10,000 to 120,000. It all depends on the type of the forest, the basal area of the forest, as well as wetlands. There's a lot of different features and functions that we need to consider, but coming up with a standard rate is kind of what we're looking at doing. So yeah, it's tricky, and it also it's not just the trees that we're paying for, it's the monitoring, right? The monitoring plan afterwards, all the utilization and kind of setting up the site with all the equipment. So it's not just the cost of the trees and the planting of the trees. There's a lot more behind that cost that you might not consider, including potential land acquisition, right? If we're kind of going after that, then that can bump up the value a lot. The way we're going to do it is there's a lot of offsetting policies around. We're going to compare different offsetting policies and see which makes the most sense, and then kind of convert those metrics to a Grey County area standard. Like, does the TRCA value, is that relevant to, you know, the value that would be within Grey County? They're probably going to be a bit different, because obviously Toronto region is a lot different than a Grey County. So that's kind of what we're looking for, and we'll try to provide some standard metrics on how we came up with those monetary values, and we're going to do the best we can, and we'll come back to you at a later date with what we've kind of created.
Excellent. Thank you, Michael. Any other questions or comments before we move along? I see Scott has another question.
Thanks, Lori. Michael, in this process, could there be a little more flexibility given to the agricultural communities? You know, I'm thinking a number of applications that have come in front of county council in regards to, you know, clear cutting certain sections of forest to be able to square off fields. You know, and then I think about wildlife corridors and, you know, where that farmer may be able to replant. Some of these restrictions, you know, at times, you know, the farmer doesn't end up getting, you know, what he's looking for. So I see a difference between our agricultural community and some of our development community, you know, as far as clear cutting. And I'm just wondering if we can build in a little more flexibility for our agricultural communities. Thanks.
Thanks, Scott. And through you, Chair. Yeah, I could see how the agricultural community would be a little bit different than a development community, for sure. We can look into that. If you have any specific comments or suggestions, feel free to forward them to us. I'm not super familiar with the forestry management bylaw. That's not necessarily my portfolio, but we do get a lot of minor exemptions happening. So if someone's looking to clear cut trees in a certain spot for farming purposes, then maybe we can consider that differently than someone who's clear cutting trees to put in a subdivision. We don't know, again, we don't know what that's going to look like now, but if you have any specific recommendations or kind of, I guess, hot issues that you've seen in the past, then yeah, forward that to me and we can definitely do some thinking on that.
Thanks, Michael. Scott Taylor.
Thanks, Chair Smith. Just to tag in on that one. So sort of the sister process to all this is the county is also reviewing our forest management bylaw, and to Councillor Mackey's question with respect to minor exemptions, I think both the forest management bylaw update and this ecological offsetting policy both need to consider those farming impacts. Primarily, we were looking at the offsetting as your higher order development applications, so your subdivisions, your gravel pits, your larger applications like that. But we can't obviously be blind to the farm community's desires and those applications we see where we are, trying to clear wooded areas for farmland purposes or squaring off fields. So certainly something we can look into. On the forest management bylaw side, we've done a bunch of research into what other municipalities and upper tiers have done in that regard. We've looked at bylaws like Niagara and various others to see what exemptions they've built in for the farm community. So that bylaw update will be coming back to both the Ag Advisory Committee and County Council in the future too. It just hasn't moved quite as quickly as we thought it would.
Thanks, Scott. Paul, please.
Yeah, not to hang on to this too long, but I was just thinking when you talk about a cash in lieu, and also with clearing off corners of fields to make agricultural operations much more efficient. But I'm thinking there are marginal lands out there that is there a possibility, where you do those woodlot exemptions, but there's also areas where it's marginal land that cash in lieu could go back into reforesting or those marginal lands. So you sort of have, I know you look for a net zero, but there may be other, like what is it called, Alice, where they have that program, but maybe there's something like that could ramp up that in lieu of for other marginal lands that and I'm thinking like sloped areas, areas of high erosion and stuff like that, I think that would be a win-win if you are taking cash in lieu, but areas throughout the county that needs that stability and as we look at climate change and higher levels of rain at a certain time, slope stability is a good thing. So, maybe they have to be identified, but I think that would be something that would be a win-win.
Great comment, Paul. Does anyone want to speak to that, Michael, or we'll let that go as a comment?
No, thank you. And through you, Chair, thanks for your comment there, Paul. I definitely agree with that. Those are basically the lands that we're looking for, is, underutilized, maybe lands that were never supposed to be agricultural lands in the first place. Either they're wet or they're a slope or whatever, not good for growing there. So yeah, those kind of marginal lands would be a perfect scenario, especially if it's not only contributing to offsetting, but like you said, slope stability, that kind of stuff, riparian areas. Those are the types of enhancement projects that we're looking at. And so not only are we offsetting the trees being taken out, but we're enhancing other areas as well. So yeah, I really like that comment. And those are definitely the areas that would be best suitable.
Perfect. Thank you. Lots of great discussion there. And as everyone has said, there's lots to think about. So if you have other comments after this meeting, please forward them. And we look forward to the next report that'll provide us even more information. So I'd like to move on to point 4, items for direction or discussion. Our first is high skills major program overview with a whole pile of people going to speak for us, which is great. Starting off, I believe it's Jill Patterson, please.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, members of the committee. I just want to make sure that our presentation is ready. And shown. I'm not sure how that works.
I can pull it up,
Thanks,
Jill.
Tara.
How does that look for everybody?
Looks great.
Good. Okay, so good morning. My name's Jill Patterson, and I'm the manager at Grey Roots Museum and Archives. I'm joined today by Kim Harbinson, who is the Learning Services Administrator for Student Success, and Dylan Williams, who's the teacher of the Specialist High Skills Majors program in agriculture, both from the Blue Water District School Board. Keith Lefebvre, who's the Superintendent of Education, had to hop off, unfortunately, but we'll continue on. So I just wanted to mention from Grey Roots perspective, the idea of hosting the agriculture program at Grey Roots was proposed back in 2021, and I believe may have originated here at this committee. We were attracted to the idea at Grey Roots because it was a way for the facilities to be used by the community in the winter and spring, which is a time of the year that's typically quieter for us. Grey Roots' mission is to share the history and heritage of Grey County, and there's no doubt that agriculture plays a strong role in forming that identity. So it took some time for us to iron out the details, and from the museum's perspective, it took a bit of a shift in our thinking as we're so used to keeping everything pristine and trying to save it for the future. So you can imagine our barn is now rather well used rather than being mostly for display purposes. So I'd like to invite Mr. Williams, Dylan, to share with you what the students were up to here at the Specialist High Skills Major Ag program here at Grey Roots.
Hello, everybody. My name is Dylan Williams. As Jill was just talking about, I've taught this Specialist High Skills Major Agriculture program over the past semester now. We're coming into our last week, so it's like crazy, but it's fun, but it's, but anyhow, we had three main focuses of our program this semester here at Grey Roots: animal science, livestock production, and greenhouse science. And so with animal science, most of that was put on the backs of field trips. We went to the University of Guelph for a day, spent a lot of time down there with them. We've been to many local Grey County organic dairy farms, whether it be the Tory farm down on the Holland Town line, or all the way down to Saugeen Country Dairy, which was a fantastic opportunity to see how yogurt was made. I didn't even know they made yogurt down there, but we're all learning, I guess. With regards to, as Jill was talking about, the barn being a bit of a barn, kind of the cornerstone of our program has been livestock production. So in the barn right now, actually, we have a sow, Ruth, who gave birth to 6 piglets, who are now in another pen. They're like in their teenage years now, and they're like my arch enemy, those piglets, but that's fine. They keep us on our toes. We have Millie the calf, who will actually be staying here over the summer as well to provide some visuals and I guess some audio, because she's a pretty loud calf for a guest coming in the summer as well. We have ducklings and chickens. We have 5 goats who are very near and dear to us. And yeah, a lot of these animals, about half of them, I guess, came as animals, and the other half were born here. Have spent their entire lives now here at Grey Roots Museum. They're in the barn or in the chicken coop, and I think that's quite cool. So we're able to utilize the orange log leading up. That's where we began our seed propagation. All the plants we have, I would love to take you out to the greenhouse and show you, but unfortunately, I guess that's not an option. We all started those from seeds. We didn't buy any plants. We only bought seeds, and we have everything from, we have 20 varieties of tomatoes to banana peppers. The University of Guelph gave us some coffee beans to plant, so we're trying our hand at coffee. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. But we've now since moved up to our greenhouse as well, which is doing us very well. Well, with this 35 degrees as of late, I don't know. Things are cooking a little bit, but anyway, the fantastic part about being here at Grey Roots is it really gives us the facilities and the freedom to explore anything we're curious about. It's kind of cool to sit there and have students ask you questions and be like, I don't know, but let's go find out. right? Let's go see. Let's not water these plants for 3 days, and let's water these plants every day, right? Our piglets are a little complaining. Let's play with their food ration a little bit and see if that makes them happier. We're just able to go out and do. And I'm very appreciative for, again, Grey Roots, the staff and the facility itself to just help, kind of help grow that curiosity and answer all the questions that we could ever have. But anyway, that's myself. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dylan. And maybe I can invite Kim Harbinson to speak just to the importance of the Specialist High Skills Major program and what the students get out of it.
Sure. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for inviting us. We're very excited to be presenting today. So the Specialist High Skills Major is a Ministry of Education funded program all over the province of Ontario. It usually has a very strong skilled trade base, but we do have, we've had the ag program. Dennis Watson ran it at a Chesley District High School way back when. And then when that school was no longer a high school, then we started these talks about moving it to Grey Roots. And it's been a great year. Jill and staff there have been great to work with. And we're continuing working on our memorandum of understanding, kind of a legal agreement. Yeah, the future, I have to add, it's, as Dylan said, we're just kind of growing and figuring things out. But I can tell you right now, the program is almost full for next year. So we're very excited about that. I am an ag kid. I have 24 4-H clubs, lived west of Desborough, grew up there, was very involved in the ag community. So I said, when I retire, I'll be coming back to help out. But next year, I'm very excited. Georgian College in Barrie campus has started an ag program there, similar to, if anybody is my vintage age, is the University of Guelph used to have a 2-year diploma program, and it was moved to Ridgetown. So Barrie campus in Georgian is offering kind of a similar program. We're excited because 2 of those courses are coming to the Owen Sound campus. We will be offering a dual credit in this program next September or next semester 2 of next year, and it will be in agricultural business, which, as anybody knows in farming, you need that component of your knowledge to look at that. So that is a dual credit, means that they get a high school credit and a college credit during the same course time. So we're excited about the future of that. And Jill and I and Dylan have also talked a little bit about proceeding with some bees coming next year. So that's in the early stages, but we're very excited about offering that to our students as well. And now that the greenhouse and the shed is almost complete, and certainly the sugar shack that's there already, it's just a growing program, and maybe at one point we'll have it all year round, which would be awesome. Thank you. And we can take questions, Jill, if need be.
Yeah, I think I'm going to try to share the presentation. I'm a little rusty with Zoom meetings these days.
I still have it.
Are you guys seeing that? Sorry?
I don't see it, but if you want me to pull it up, let me know.
Yeah, if you don't mind pulling it up and just flicking through the photos really quickly, just to see the happy kids.
Very happy kids.
Yeah, so the maple syrup production. Seed propagation. Dylan, jump in if I'm not describing things properly. Some hydroponics.
Oh, no, you're doing great. Yeah.
We got some of this maple syrup here at the museum, so that was a nice treat. Lots of female students, which is great to see.
Yes, of the 8 students we have in the program, 7 are in fact female. This is that Saugeen Country Dairy. And Grown in Grey, where we participated and ran a couple of booths at. There's Ruth, our sow.
That's the greenhouse. That's just next door on the property next door to the west. That's the chicken coop. And that was the open house that the school board ran here at the museum back in early May. It was a great turnout. And there we are. Thank you, Tara. Did anybody have any questions or comments?
I'd like to thank Jill and Kim and Dylan for all that excellent information. I went to the open house. It was amazing. Well done. Our daughter was part of the program back when it was in Chesley. So this program is near and dear to my heart. And so thank you for doing everything that you've done. Those students at that open house were so eloquent with all of their answers. They knew their stuff. It was very, very impressive. So thank you. I have a quick question for Kim before I go to Simon and Gail. I know that's probably not allowed, but I'm going to do it anyways. Kim, when you said that the program was full for next year, what is full in terms of numbers?
So we try to keep it about 16 students, just because of the, as Dylan described, when they come in the morning, they have chores to do. So if we put like 25 or 30 kids in there, that's almost too much for one teacher to handle because they're kind of all over the place. So we like to keep it about 16.
Perfect. Thank you. Simon.
Well, thank you very much for that presentation. We were at the open house and I certainly enjoyed it. It was good to be there, but it was also good to see. I went to a similar program quite some years ago, and I was listening to the presentation. The question arose, would it be okay if we came over sometime and sit into a in-class session? I would like to see the moods of those students and yeah, the general disposition towards this program. It's very close to my heart, and I think it's a very good program. Without the agricultural school, I would have never been where I am today. That is the same.
Thank you, Simon. Could we sit in at some point or other, Kim?
Absolutely. I think just making a time for, with the teacher ahead of time would be great. Certainly not this year because, as Dylan said, we're just wrapping up. Exams start tomorrow. So today is actually their last day of formal classes. But certainly something to look at for, we start in February of next year. So that would be something that we could help facilitate for sure.
Perfect. And if any of you are on social media, if you follow their Instagram account, it's awesome. And it's like seeing what happens every day. So do take a look at that as well. Gail.
Just a comment. Thank you. I think that's very innovative, and thank you for the initiative of getting this forward and having 7 women. I think that's even better still. There's, always a lack of female farmers, and I just think just having it in Grey County is spectacular, and everybody collaborating on this. Well done. Just well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gail. Randy, please.
Yeah, just to build off of Gail's comments, it's just super exciting to see, obviously, this pilot project being so successful, and just want to thank Jill and the Grey Roots team and Kim and Dylan at the Blue Water District School Board. Just a great way of demonstrating how working together, collaborating, we can come together and just seeing the smiles on the faces of the students and obviously the excitement and energy from Dylan as their teacher. My goodness, that's fantastic. So I just want to thank everyone that's been involved in setting this up and working together to make it happen.
Thank you.
Thanks, Randy. Any other questions or comments? Well, thank you very much again for coming today. It's positive energy and it's great to hear all of that. And we look forward to hearing what's happening at the next year's program. So keep in touch. Thank you.
Thanks so much for inviting us.
Very welcome. Thank you. Take care. Moving on to 4B, Sustainable Agricultural Survey results. I think Megan Miles was to present that today. Hello, Megan.
Hi, how's it going?
Good.
I'll just share my screen here. You seeing that okay?
Yes, looks great.
Perfect. Well, thanks for the opportunity to share about our findings from the Sustainable Agriculture Survey that the climate team undertook earlier this year. It's really great to hear about all the experimental work going on at Grey Roots. When I spoke to you in February, it was just before applications closed for experimental acres, which we now have 6 farms participating in, and you can find those project profiles on the Grey Ag Services website. And yeah, just speaking of collaboration and all the great work going on. Thanks to Emily and Lori at Grey Ag for helping us deliver that program that's well underway. Just with the caveat, while I grew up in Bruce County and have spent some time on a beef farm near Ferndale, I'm far from an ag expert, so really looking forward to hearing any insights that this group might have. I'll go through the presentation fairly quickly, but happy to circle back to any questions. So this is kind of the basis for doing this survey, was that Action 3 is around capacity building for sustainable agriculture. It's one of our 4 foundational pillars, and these 4 pillars make up 40% of our emissions reductions goals. And this is just kind of a quick reminder of some of the elements that fall under this action, but on-farm demonstrations, pilot projects, manure management, incentives for carbon capture, reducing methane production, and this really connects well with some of the earlier presentations that we've heard about today. So our climate plan sets targets for a % of land under best practices for minimizing GHG reductions and maximizing carbon capture, which is 60% for natural land, 90% for cropland, and 50% for manure. And when we started to think about how we might track progress towards this goal, we realized that the first step was really getting a clear understanding of what we're defining as best practices. So yeah, we wanted to listen first to the agricultural community and better understand current practices, maybe try to collect some baseline data, prioritize for setting, helping support these best practices, and to allow us to really showcase some of the great work that's already underway across the county. Prior to the launch, we reviewed the survey with Grey Ag Services and a small group of other farmers to make sure that the practices we are including were relevant and made sense. And then we launched the survey at Grey Bruce Farmers Week and promote it through the county website, social media, email lists, and Grey Ag Services. So our response rate was from 30 farmers, so insufficient to be representative when we have over 2,000 farm operators across Grey. However, it was really nice to see that there was a variety in terms of location, farm size, and types of products. The average farm size was about 200 workable acres, and the size of farms ranged from a 2-acre farm to 1,200 workable acres. And some of the most common products were beef cattle, but 40% hay, wheat, and cash crops. So yeah, pretty good variety. So just looking at some of the high-level key findings, one of the most widely adopted was buffer strips and increased use of perennial forages. We also asked what people were most willing to consider, and what the highest percentages were around building energy efficiency retrofits as well as renewables, because that also allows for diversified income streams. It was kind of interesting to also see what people were most unfamiliar with. So carbon farming, that's sort of the umbrella term for farming in a way that focuses on absorbing carbon into the soil, and some of these other practices fall under that term. Micro irrigation, ionophores, which are still pretty new, but decided to include them just to kind of out of curiosity to see if anyone was doing that. And recently 3-NOP was just approved in Canada in January of this year. And then also methane and biogas capture, that was also kind of on the higher in terms of familiarity. And that's interesting because that's Action 15 in Going Green and Grey. So just kind of having a better understanding of how many people are thinking about biogas and familiar with it. I'm aware of one operation in Elmwood, Marl Creek Renewables, and they were recently featured on Real Agriculture under their Profitable Practices series. And their 22 head of cattle operation and on-farm biodigester is enough to power 700 to 750 homes. So just kind of doing some very quick analysis, combining what farmers would consider or either trying or have adopted. These were some of the practices that came out on top. Cover crops, solar, wind, geothermal, and other renewable, crop rotation, manure storage best practices, building energy efficiency retrofits, and converting marginal land to permanent forage. I won't go through these in detail, but just wanted to give you a sense of how the survey was laid out in terms of we had practices in these 3 different areas, and then people could indicate if they were not familiar, have tried, would consider, currently trying, adopted, and then combining those last 3 columns, we totaled a priority score. So the first kind of section was around improving soil and organic matter. The next one was around livestock and manure management. And obviously, if people didn't have livestock on their farm, they could select not applicable. And then the last kind of category was energy conservation and production. The second part of the survey related to climate adaptation. So looking at the climate-related impacts on farms. And interestingly, about 70% of responses indicated that they were noticing climate or weather-related changes on their farm. It was split in terms of the percentage of people who were attributing that to climate change versus weather versus other, and we didn't ask what other was. But some of the most common observations were more intense rain and flooding, increased temperatures, and longer growing season or increased drought. We also asked what the most common adaptation measures were, and wrapping more hay was quite common, as well as longer season crops. Once again, the other category was quite high, and some of the things that people indicated were increasing biodiversity, reduced tillage, and looking at soil structure, increasing soil organic matter, just integrating cattle to build soil fertility, capturing more carbon, and capturing more water, and converting dry parts or more vulnerable parts of the farm with other cover. There was also some success stories that came out. So just work around diversifying crops, perennial grass diet for maintaining that permanent forage, integrating crop and livestock, rotational grazing, and in one case there was a higher density orchards, new sprayer technology to reduce pesticide use. So yeah, just looking at next steps, we want to just continue to use these findings as well as additional research to prioritize which initiatives, because sustainable agriculture is such a broad umbrella term. It's really helpful, I think, to zero in on what we mean by that and what practices we want to prioritize, while also keeping in kind of the diversity of farms across the county and making sure that we're offering that broad diversity. Continue to showcase some of these success stories of different types of farm operations. We want to continue to ground truth these findings in consultation with farmers and farm organizations like Gray Ag Services, as well as look at other data sources such as the Census of Agriculture. And if we choose to do this survey again in the future, just to kind of do that little litmus test along the way, we'd look at ways to increase the response rate, maybe making the survey shorter. It was quite detailed. So, you know, there could have been folks that opened it up and been like, whoa, this is more than I looked for. And so, yeah. And yeah, thanks so much and happy to answer any questions.
Thanks so much, Megan. Great presentation. Lots of stuff in there for sure. Any other questions and comments, please? Simon, please.
Always seem to have some words to say. Maybe they're not always wise, but
always wise.
Thanks, Megan, for this presentation and for sending out the survey at the time. I filled it out, and it made me certainly think, like, what are we doing? I think agriculture is, myself, I always feel we're doing probably more than we get credited for sometimes, but in any case, that's just my own opinion. The question what I have is about like the carbon sequestration and carbon farming and so on. How would I word this? The production of food is complicated enough already, and the distribution worldwide is certainly very unequal. I wonder, carbon farming, how is this going to affect the price of our commodities? Will they become less or more affordable to people that don't have a meal to put on the table? And certainly in our own area, we have people that are totally reliable on food banks worldwide. That breaks my heart more than once when I'm watching news and I see people in other countries that I think you're no more than existing. So anyways, that's my question. I'm not sure whether I'm not sure whether you have an answer for it, but maybe somebody has.
Yeah, I think you're right. Totally, I agree. And if we can do any work to showcase the great work that's being done, there were some conversations earlier around that as well. And so just making sure that we really, in the survey, we really wanted to emphasize farmers as really important land stewards and all the great work that's being done in projects like Alice and the New Acres program that Keith's involved with, and continuing those collaborations. Yeah, in terms of the bigger question of the impact of carbon farming on food prices and the difficulty of farming, I don't think I can really answer that, but that's something that we can continue to explore and be aware of as these policy changes happen at upper levels of government, just staying really in tune with what's happening on the ground and understanding how farmers are being affected, and just making it as easy as possible and really focusing on kind of where the biggest bang for the buck is. I don't know, Rebecca or Randy, if you want to add anything to
that. No, just to, I think you've indicated quite well, Megan, in terms of, the importance of looking at how we balance some of the initiatives going forward, right? Are there some initiatives that just make sense that are already being, as Megan indicated, being done by farmers across Grey? How can we share that information, share some of those best practices? How can we maybe work together to enhance some of those initiatives? So I think it's building on some existing success stories across the agriculture community, and seeing how we can support and enhance some of those other great programs that Megan indicated, like Alice and others, to be able to move forward with some of the targets and some of the initiatives and actions that are identified in the county's climate change action plan. So so I think we need to make sure that it's a balanced approach, and that we're working with the agriculture community on what makes the most sense.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's looking at the case study from Elmwood in terms of biogas, and then also looking at energy projects, I think, and maybe there's an opportunity for integrating some of this work with the offsetting, if that becomes policy down the road, where some of these initiatives could really be an additional income stream and help farmers diversify their income. So yeah, just focusing on the low hanging fruit in that regard.
Wonderful, thank you. I'm just going to take Rebecca ahead of Gail because I'm assuming Rebecca wants to comment on this as well. So go ahead, Rebecca.
Thanks. I just wanted to respond to that. I think we're hoping as well to at some point develop some programs that would support resiliency on farms too, because there's a lot of impacts of climate change that are already baked in, and we want to do what we can to support our farmers so that we're not having to increase prices or lowering production because climate change is happening. How can we sort of build some programs that would support the resiliency on farm? So that's another direction we're hoping to go in the future.
Thank you, Rebecca. Gail, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And, I was going over the results, and I know TBM, Town of the Blue Mountains, I don't think too many people did the survey. I know I did, but it's hard. There's been we talked about this the other day, that I think the town's been surveyed to death, and people just don't want to do surveys anymore. So I think that's why the low turnout for TBM, and because the Georgian Bay area, that's our town, Blue Mountains, Meaford, I don't know, there's one farm in Collingwood, I believe still. And we have the largest concentration of apple growing in all of Canada. So to see two farms, I think that's right too. That's a very poor turnout, because there is a low number of apple growers now. At one time, we probably had between 250 and 275, and we're probably about 50 growers now, which is very, very low. The smaller farms have been gobbled up by the larger farms, and then, like we're doing the V trellis system, so we're doing the 4,000 trees per acre. A lot of the apple growers haven't caught up to us as yet, but due to the economic cost factors, that's the reason why we are trying to be innovative and do things a little bit different to cut down on our costs. Financially, it's very expensive to do it this way, but other people just with the price of apples right now too, it's gonna be a tough year, believe me, because the market's being flooded by Washington State, and so all of the apple growers are in a conundrum, like now what are they going to do and who they're going to sell to. So there's lots to consider there, but sometimes surveys, I think the Georgian Bay fruit growers, I guess I can ask Megan, did somebody reach out to the Georgian Bay fruit growers, or how was it, done for our town, the Blue Mountains?
We didn't reach out directly, but that's something. It's maybe in the future, if we decide to do the survey again, and I think your feedback is super valid that people get surveyed out. So this is where we need to be using different sources of data and input to ground truth the information, and use it looking at what data sources already exist. But yeah, I'll certainly add them to the list for future outreach to, it's great when we can work with existing organizations.
And I just had my ag meeting last night. I'm the chair of the TBM's ag, and I forgot to mention it. My agenda was quite full anyways, and I didn't want to go past an hour and a half. So, and we went an hour and 3/4, just trying to get everything else in. And I will make a comment further down on the agenda on another issue, but yes, thank you for the results of this anyways. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Megan and Gail. And we too are watching the clock. So we will take Paul's comment or question, and then we'll move on to the next point.
So I'll be quick. 3 things. Let's eat Ontario apples. Put a sticker on it. Number 2 is sometimes you got to go where the farmers are, and certain times of the year because farmers are busy. Certainly fairs is one opportunity, and certainly if somebody would like to, we do usually have a farm safety booth at a lot of the Grey County fairs, and if you wanted to use that as an anchor point to do surveys, certainly I think that would be a good opportunity to go to where the farmers are. And thirdly, when I was out at FCM a week ago there, and I was going through their trade show, and there is one fella showcasing the ability to grow willow. And you talk about climate adaptation, but growing willow that you can grind up, it continues to keep growing, but they use it for around sewage lagoon areas. There's a lot of, it's a fiber-based product. It grows very tall. I guess they do this a lot in Europe, and maybe others have heard of growing willow. So there's a lot of things out there that are coming along. You have to get certain farm equipment to be adapted to, grind this up through like a chopper, like a corn chopper, but they do that. Anyway, just three things there. Make it up. I'll leave it at that.
Perfect, Paul. Thank you. I would entertain a motion to receive this information and report. Shirley? And seconder, I see Tom Hutchison's hand up. I see Keith. Oops, Keith is gone. Okay. So all in favor? It's probably easier on Zoom to say, are there anyone opposed? No. Okay. So thank you very much, Megan. That was great. And thank you for all the questions and comments. Want to move on to point 4C, battery energy storage systems. There's a lot in here as well. Scott Taylor, I believe, is giving this report.
Thanks, Chair Smith. It's actually going to be Liz Buckton. She's the expert on this topic.
Sorry.
Great. Thanks, Scott. Great. Thank you, Lori. Appreciate it. Happy to talk with you on this, and we'll just provide a verbal update. How could we possibly have more words to say about BESS than are included in the 22-page report that's been shared along? I don't know, but alas, we do. So I will, if this is a topic of interest to you, I will just note that in addition to the staff report, we did present to County Council as well. So that is a recorded presentation available through the agendas and minutes part of our website if you're interested to see that. But I guess generally I would just say that so the report itself really began and focused around battery energy storages, and that related to the IESO's first long-term intake that was focused on these battery energy storages. And so, through that process, we began reaching out and had a whole slew of conversations with various different players in and relating to those issues. And I guess also we tried to kind of incorporate and foreshadow a little bit the pending long-term 2 intake by the IESO, which will roll out later this year. And so that second intake will focus around renewable energy generation projects, which may or may not include a BESS as well on site. So in the report, we did note that there are some policy and technical framework gaps that exist. And I don't think that's so uncommon with kind of new and emerging technology. Thankfully, there are other areas and jurisdictions in the world that have dealt with this technology in a more fulsome way already. And so we've tried to pull in some resources from some of those other jurisdictions, some example ordinances and considerations kind of on the land use planning side of things. And so I think that report will be a good resource for accessing what exists at current. And we've tried to, within the appendix to that report, kind of detail the land use planning considerations for our local planners and local municipalities in considering the framework they want to establish for these facilities. I guess what I will say, it's a live issue. So that long-term 2 intake, I think, is anticipated late in the year. So December, as late as you can get. But between now and then, we are anticipating a new provincial planning statement from the province. And so as part of our report, we had recommended, and the warden has since sent along a letter to the province asking for the preparation of an energy guidance policy by the province to help us determine how we move forward with those facilities. But my understanding is that there has, as of June 6th, been some minister direction it was jointly issued by OMAFRA and the Ministry of Energy to IESO regarding that next intake, specifically as it relates to agricultural lands. And I think the rumor or the expectation is that the draft provincial planning statement will likely reflect some of the items that have been raised in this directive. And really, I think just looking at the letter that they have issued for that next intake, they will be looking at, I guess, providing rated criteria points for projects that avoid agricultural areas. They would specifically prohibit projects in specialty crop areas, would prohibit ground-mounted solar projects in prime agricultural areas, and then allow for other types of renewable projects to only locate on lands that are prime agricultural if they've received a municipal council endorsement and an agricultural impact assessment has been completed. So it looks like, I think that framework is evolving. That's the direction that's been given to IESO in terms of structuring that next intake. And we'll have to wait likely until the fall, now that legislature is on summer hiatus, to see where the planning statement goes with that. But I think all things said and done, we have some good information around how to handle these applications and how to address our planning framework. We are monitoring kind of what other municipalities are doing that are a little further ahead of us in terms of some broader policy development for those features. And we will, yes, wait anxiously to see where we go with those planning updates from the province and ultimately the rollout of that next intake in the fall. So I'm happy to kind of address any questions with respect to the report. I don't know how far into those 22 pages you may have ventured, but certainly can try to speak to any of those questions. And Scott is also a resource here as well if we run into trouble. So thanks very much.
Thanks so much, Liz, for that update. Blair has a question, I see.
Yeah, thank you for that. That was great. So I guess my primary concern, I think you touched on it, is so there's a project that's being proposed across the road from one of our farms that's in Erin Elderslie, so it's obviously in Bruce County. But so I guess the easy thing to do is strip 50 acres of farmland and dump a bunch of batteries there to store energy. I guess the concern from the agricultural community is, are there ways that we can utilize existing brownfield sites, abandoned industrial areas, that kind of thing, rather than stripping prime farmland as is the case in the proposed site across the road from one of our farms over there?
Right. Okay. So through you, the chair, I think for a Bruce County project, I think it might make sense to have a discussion with their planners there. It's a bit of a challenging process because the IESO goes out with a call for proposals, and then ultimately the lands that are being forwarded as potential project sites. That's not something we're necessarily having input on as local government. There are the municipal support resolutions, I guess, that will come into play for this next round. I understand they might be making those mandatory. So presumably there would be an opportunity to have some initial review of new proposals. But for those existing ones, particularly where an award has been made, I really don't know kind of what the tolerance or ability is to kind of change the siting of those at this stage. That said, I anticipate there would likely be some planning approvals required to go with that. And so I think it would be through that process where if there are kind of mitigation of risks or protection of features, I think that process would likely be where those would be addressed and captured. We didn't have awards within Grey County for the best projects, but we have still had some interest in kind of moving forward with some of the consultations around potential projects. I think it's understood in the industry that there will be multiple further intakes and interest in these facilities. So yeah, if we are hearing from those folks at our municipalities, if there is that opportunity to kind of direct or suggest alternatives, kind of in a pre-consultation setting might be appropriate for that. Scott, did you want to add anything further there?
No, I think Liz, you've done a great job. Blair, if you'd like to get in touch with either Liz or myself, we can put you in touch with the Bruce County planners that might be best positioned to answer your question. But thank you for raising that.
I'm not concerned about the existing application of that particular project. I'm just saying this is going to be an issue moving forward that's going to need to be dealt with, because the cheapest place to develop one of these projects is on farmland, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So those kind of backwards incentives, right? That we really do want to protect them, but I think there are some locational criteria, with respect to those transmission lines that need to be satisfied for a site to be successful. And so I really think that kind of energy document that we've requested from the province could be very helpful to us in just trying to figure out, how do we balance those objectives, and what is the lifespan and the potential for those lands kind of following a project on site? Is there a possibility to put them back into production or use if in fact they're taken out for a period of time as well?
Thanks, Liz. Thanks, Blair, for flagging that as well. Simon?
Just a comment, much in the line of Blair's concern. The transition lines from the Bruce Power to Milton, that land under those lines, that's largely owned by Ontario Hydro or whatever. Could some of those lands be used for putting those battery storages on? They don't have to acquire farmland. And the lines are right there. So just by farmer observation, maybe not right, but it's on my mind.
Thanks, Simon. Comment to that, Liz, or not? Pretty.
Yeah. So I mean, that would be really efficient, right? If they were to use land that they already had for that purpose. I think the approach has been that they are looking for other owners. It is kind of issued on a contract basis, so it's not necessarily like a Hydro One facility, for example. It would be the private contractor running that facility. In the locational criteria, so Hydro One has developed a technical standard for siting of the facilities, and they actually do call for some separations from their corridors. And my understanding is that, if there were ever to be a cell that experienced the thermal runaway event, there is the potential for ionization, I guess, of the air around the lines and some fire risk. So, I think those lands are used by Hydro One, but I don't necessarily know that they would be able to accommodate that without some mitigation as well, just for the risks that might exist there. But yeah, I take your point entirely. I'd love to see those lands that are already disturbed and used for other purposes being used above farmland that has that job already set out for it.
Thanks, Liz. I see Blair's hand up, but I think that's just hasn't been taken down yet, I'm assuming. Okay, so not seeing any other hands up for anything from anyone else. I want to thank you for providing all that information, Liz. Great stuff. And I would like to move on to 4D, which is a Bill 185 update, which I'm sure we'll have a lot of conversation as well. Scott, please take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'll keep this very brief because I'm really excited for the roundtable here coming up next. Basically, the county commented on Bill 185 and as Liz mentioned, the new draft provincial planning statement through a staff report to Committee of the Whole on May 9th. That report was shared with this committee. Since May 9th, Bill 185 has now passed, and we're still waiting on a decision on the draft provincial planning statement. There wasn't too much in Bill 185 that we'd flagged for the interest of this committee, other than the fact that the province has reinstated the rights for people to appeal the refusal of a settlement area boundary expansion. So to put that in maybe lay terms, if someone came in your municipality and asked to expand a settlement area, your municipal council said no, they could now appeal that to the Ontario Land Tribunal, whereas prior to Bill 185, they couldn't. So that was the biggest concern. I think from an agricultural perspective, we've heard a lot of chatter from different ag associations and groups on that. The sort of sister policy to that, well, that's legislation, not policy, but the sister consideration is that draft provincial planning statement. And in fairness to the province, they listened after the 2023 draft, and they took away the 3 severances in ag. So good news there. But they did also make it easier to expand, or they're proposing to make it easier in the 2024 draft to expand a settlement area. And certainly that has lots of concern with respect to the impact on ag lands. So staff will continue to monitor this. We'll keep this group up to date when we hear back on a decision on the draft provincial planning statement. And we're still waiting on a few additional regulations to come out as it pertains to Bill 185. That's the very quick update. Certainly happy to take any questions, but also happy to move right into the roundtable as well.
Thanks so much, Scott. Any questions or clarifications for Scott, please? I'm seeing no hands. Thank you very much, Scott, for bringing that forward. And yes, we're going to move to the roundtable discussion. I described this yesterday as the gold mine of this whole entire meeting. So looking forward to going through this. First up, Diane Booker, Grey County Federation of Agriculture update to kind of talk about their policy positions. Diane, are you prepared to do that?
Yes, I was just getting unmuted. Sorry.
Perfect.
I guess I didn't really understand when Tara asked me to. I was just, I thought I was to give a Wilmot update. And so I have some of that and what our position is with municipal governments and provincial. And so the OFA continues to work with municipal councils and organizations to ensure agriculture has a strong voice on issues, legislation, regulations covered by the municipal government. As you know, there are 50 local federations throughout the province who are under the umbrella of the Ontario Federation of Agriculture. And we have a full staff of policy analysts that make the government submissions and try to work with producers every day. So just on the Wilmot update, there is numerous local county federations, in addition to Grey Federation, that have shared their support to the Waterloo Federation in concern of how things have occurred. OFA continues to support the local landowners. The Federation community calls for transparency and process. As Scott just talked about, Bill 185, it has passed and effectively removes the robust land use plans that Waterloo had in place for their local official plan. So this also amends who may appeal decisions moving forward. Locally, the Wilmot and Waterloo regions have policies in place that when delegations come, they can only present on the topics that are already on the agenda. So they can't keep going and talking about the expropriation. And as of yet, the process of expropriation has not seemed to have started, but that could change. And they are having an array of local town halls that are planned by the federations. There's one tonight, there's one Monday night, and over the next couple of weeks in the different townships and in Waterloo. And then there's continued attendance of reps from OFA at the municipal meetings in the audience, despite not being able to be on the agendas, and the farmers are there too. So I don't know what else you wanted, Lori, or how it was, but that's what I thought that Tara had asked was for that Wilmot.
That sounds great, Diane. Thank you. Any comment from what Diane has shared with us? Paul?
Just a comment. Diane, I don't know if everybody in this call understands what's happening, but from the very onset of how these lands became in question, I don't know if you want to give a 30-second little bit overview of how we got to where we are, because I think it was the municipality that got us to where we are, right?
Right. The Wilmot municipality has decided that they want to build something that is to expropriate 700 acres of farmland in that township. So they haven't been told what they want to build. It's just that they want this 700 acres for, so it could be for an Amazon warehouse, it could be for a hospital, but they haven't been told what it is wanted to be used for.
Great clarification, Paul and Diane. Any other thoughts there? Okay, seeing no hands. Thank you, Diane, for sharing that. Let's just move into sector trends and challenges. So this is our opportunity to share whatever is on your mind. It's a great opportunity for farmers to express what's been going on. I know it's been a rough spring. I know there's been a lot of issues out there with regards to getting seeds in the ground now, trying to get dry hay, etc. So this is the opportunity to share those things. So raise your hand and take it away. We're quiet. Simon.
Not that I always want to help you out, sorry, but
I
if
know.
I can be of any help, I gladly be. Anyhow, the farm or the plastic that we use on farms. Summer like this, any other year, bale wrap has been a godsend. And that is now I also can see that the waste product that it produces is or seems to be a problem. Like our municipalities, they still take our bale wrap condensed in bales, and that gets recycled and made into field tile eventually. All the other plastic bunk covers, ag bags, not anymore. I hear confusing news. County of Oxford, they have a pilot project. They take those plastics at $50 a ton. Where is this going? Like it is, there will be for what I understand, there will be a tax on the plastic waste starting September. Is there any more insight into those problems?
Thank you, Simon. There's also a clean farm pilot happening in Bruce County, right, Simon?
There was.
Oh, it's
and that is almost canned. Like they still take the bale wrap, but I haven't talked to our road superintendent, but I think that plastic, that bale wrap, I think it is the municipality that organizes bringing it into Listowel. Years ago, Knott's Farms used to come pick up all our plastic. That ended, and at the same time, Clean Farm stepped in. You could get bags, put your plastic in there, and deliver it at the landfill, and it was taken care of. We actually we were involved in a process to make presses that we can compress those plastics, and it worked quite good. Like Edgar Martin and Dirk, they made 12. And Jacob Kellendonk was involved, made 12 presses, and they were distributed in our municipality, and people were quite happy to work with. And on Clean Farm, they came out with a press themselves, an hydraulic press, which I like better. And I thought this thing was going quite well till on the end of February, we were involved that there was no more plastic to be delivered at the landfill site anymore. And you would be charged accordingly if you did. But they don't even want the ag bag or bunker cover plastic anymore, and neither do they want bale twine. So I'm quite confused. Like I got the number laying here from Clean Farm, and on this coming Wednesday at our Christian Farmers meeting in Orangeville, we will discuss this thing in depth.
Thank you, Simon. Gail?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just wondering if I could mention about the TVM, the Blue Mountains Youth Climate Action Fund. And so I am on that committee, and we are now accepting applications. And for county councillors, they're already well aware of the Climate Action fund for other people online that are not aware. This is a youth-led climate initiatives, and they are eligible to get funding for between $1,500 and $6,000, and they must be between the ages of 15 and 24, and they can work with nonprofit groups and do some climate action, and that way they will get some funding. And so we have now are opening up our applications. We've done a selection committee who will be going through when they do get some applications in, and we have apparently received a few already. So it's moving forward quite quickly, and this the town of the Blue Mountains will be receiving $50,000, and out of that we can take some administration costs so that there's no cost to the town. And if we use all of our funds up, we will be able to initiate another $100,000 in initiatives, oh my goodness, can't even talk today, initiatives, so that we can keep moving forward on climate action. So we've been spreading the word, and Megan Miles was on there the other day. So, we've reached out to Blue Water, schools, where this is regionally, because we can't just do it in our own town. So we're going as far north as Tobermory. So I just thought I would mention it on here. So if, Grey Federation has any young people that want to do some climate action, I think this would be a great initiative for them, and they can piggyback on with another nonprofit. So it's pretty exciting. If they want to do tree planting or in each of the communities, I think we all want trees. So then they put forth a proposal. We will be helping them do their grant writing as well. And we are going to be having a session on grant writing. And I think it was doing virtually, but in person as well. So I just wanted to mention this.
Thanks, Gail. Sounds exciting. I'm assuming we can find that information on social media somewhere in order to promote and share. Perfect.
Yes, it's on the TBM website as well.
Okay, we'll look for that and get that shared. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Keith, please.
Yes, thanks, Lori. And I've debated on whether I should mention this today here or not, but it is something that we're struggling with as a family here. We have my mom and dad lives on a farm with 2 houses. And it's a century log home that they have been renting out successfully for the last 12 or 15 years. We have had tenants come in on the 8th of May that has been absolutely a struggle. And I think that the reason for me bringing this up to the Ag Advisory Committee is that we have had this discussion. I know Scott has mentioned, the ability that some of these houses are actually good houses, but are actually being torn down because they don't want to become landlords to issues like this. So just raising it, there is a $5,000 tax now that has been implemented, and I believe it's called the underutilized house tax. Possibly, Scott, you might be able to help me fill this in, but it is encouraging you to keep the house full. But as farmers are purchasing a second farm or have a second house, this is something that is a problem, and I think a lot falls to the Landlord Tenant Act, where the tenants have so much weight. Once they're in, with the ability to move them out is next to impossible. The sheriff's eviction, even though they've come in fraudulently, are not paying rent, doing things that we are not okay with. As landlords have no ability to move them out unless they have a sheriff's eviction, which if the process starts today could be 6 to 8 months from now. anyways, mental health has been hard on our families. I think 6 of us have been completely occupied with it for over a month now. They've only been there for a month, but faking falls, just anything you could name it, they've already sent it, and it's happening. So just wanted to bring this to this group's attention that the optics of a house coming down because of a farm purchasing a property is not good. And with situations like the Landlord Tenant Act, it definitely encourages a farmer to tear a house down. When we have Ford trying to push for more housing quickly, this is an issue that I think that needs to be explored and some changes definitely made. So I'm not looking for anything to be solved today, but I did want to mention that as this is as a roundtable discussion. So
Thanks, Keith. And so sorry that you guys are going through that. That's for sure. We have enough mental health issues with the crazy spring, et cetera. You don't need that. So Scott, can you provide any comment to that?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Smith. And again, sorry, Keith, that sounds dreadful. I wonder if it's something we could follow up offline with. I'm not too terribly familiar with this. Randy and I were just kind of Googling as you were speaking there with respect to the underutilized housing tax and the powers at the provincial level on municipal vacant home tax. But we're certainly happy to chat further with you. I see Randy has his hand up too in terms of looking at options. We also have our own community services staff that are more familiar with the Landlord Tenants Act and the provision. Obviously, we can't give out legal advice, but if there's any general advice we could share, happy to look into it. But if it's okay with you, Chair Smith, I might turn it over to Randy to see if he has anything to share here.
Thanks, Scott. Randy?
Yeah, thanks. And yeah, just for those, Scott, I think we'll definitely get back to Keith and to back to the Ag Advisory Committee as a follow-up, maybe at the next meeting. I would like to know that our county treasurer is having regularly the local treasurers get together from the various municipalities to talk about various matters and issues. I know our tax consultant is actually going to be attending the treasurers meeting is happening on Monday next week. So I'll flag this for our finance director, and we can have some further discussions on as it relates to that tax. From what I understand, it might be the tax that Keith was referring to as the vacant home tax that the province has extended the authority to for single opportunity municipalities impose tax on vacant homes. And it's my understanding that we have not exercised that option at this time in Grey County. But again, I want to clarify and get back to folks and in terms of that particular matter, and as well as any resources we can provide and share as it relates to tenants and landlords and how to navigate some of that system and process. I think the more information we can share, with our ag community, as well as those others that are looking at adding things like additional residential units to their properties. I think, it'd be just helpful to provide as much information as we can to those so that hopefully they can avoid some of the challenges that unfortunately Keith's family is experiencing.
Thanks so much, Randy. Gail?
Yep.
Thank you. And through the chair, I do sit on Ontario Small Urban Municipalities, and at our meeting in Ottawa for AMO, we have a ministers meeting with two ministers, and one is Minister Calandra, and that is a top of mind for OSAM and the Landlord and Tenant Board review and the timelines, because there are some difficulties in a lot of our small urban towns. And so this was top of mind, and it's the number one. I'm just looking at my agenda right now, and that is the number one topic. So if Keith could get in touch with me too and give me some feedback on that offline, I'll gladly discuss that with the Minister of Housing, and just because it's vital and it's important, and you're in a predicament, and it's mental health issues, and definitely we need to get this resolved.
And there's many other, I'm sure there are others like Keith out there that are handling the same thing. And it does make, you know, you weigh the options. Do you rent your house or do you tear it down?
Yes, definitely. And it's in some of the large, well, Osum is under 100,000 in population. So there are some other towns who are still experiencing this, but they're in town. And so it's not just the agricultural lands, it's everywhere. So if Keith, you want to get in touch with me, that'd be great. Thank you.
I love the support that's being given here. Keith, yes, sorry.
Yeah, no, thank you. I do appreciate everyone's comments from this too. And I think the reason that I'm bringing this up at the Ag Committee is that just mainly the optics of, you know, a second farm is purchased and automatically it gets painted with this corporate farm brush. You know, an extra farm is bought, the house comes down, and it looks bad for the consumer, or whoever has the ability to comment on it. And there is a lot of underlying issues of the reason why that happens. So thanks everyone for your
well said. Thank you, Keith. Simon.
Just hearing the conversation, and we've been fortunate with our housing rental. I see ads in some magazines, and there's actually companies out there, they broker those houses. They do all the work. I have no experience with it, but they advertise quite extensively. And I wonder, for people with surplus homes, if this is anything to look into. So, and I don't have to. I don't think I got that handy right now, but if there's anybody interested in I can try to find their number. But there are companies that are doing this, so I don't. Whether this is any help to anybody, I don't know, but I just bring this forward.
Thank you, Simon. Always wanting to help out, that's for sure. Any other comments to add to the sector trends and challenges? Any farmers want to share what's been going on? Seeing no hands, it's a quiet day today. So I think we will move on to correspondence. So thank you for everyone that did share, and this is always a great part of the meeting. Moving on to correspondence, there were 2 pieces of correspondence attached to your agenda for your review. We don't need to go through them here necessarily. Would someone like to make a motion to receive the correspondence as presented? I see Paul's hand, so I will assume a seconder can be Scott Mackey. Any discussion on the correspondence that you that you've reviewed? Diane?
Just on the stormwater, the one from Lisa Thompson.
Yes.
That's being a big thorn in other municipalities where the farmers are getting charged for their stormwater, and just that, you know, farmers, the stormwater infiltrates and it goes through the aquifer and through the creeks and gets absorbed very much in our agriculture land. So we don't have a lot of stormwater out in the country that needs to be taxed upon.
Thanks, Diane. And
in the municipalities.
Right. And I asked the question yesterday, but I'll ask it again here. So there are no stormwater fees in Grey County. I'm seeing a nod no from Randy.
No, I'm not aware of any that's been applied or any that's being investigated at this stage.
Perfect. Thank you. Any other discussion or questions from the correspondents? Seeing no hands, I'm trying to be slow. You know how normally I move so fast. I am trying to be slow enough for you. So I will call the question. All in favor with receiving the correspondence? Anyone opposed? I'd say that's carried, Tara. Okay, moving on to point 7, other business. I believe Savannah wants to chat with us here about a Share the Road campaign.
Good morning, everybody. I brought Kalina with me because she has been the lead on the expansion of the Share the Road campaign. But there's been a lot of movement since we met last time, and we wanted to take an opportunity for Kalina to talk about what has been changing and also share a video with you. So I'm going to hand it right over to her.
Thank you, Savannah. Since last fall when we had the Share the Road campaign for the harvest season, we have transitioned it to be a little bit more brought to life by adding a video component that has been shared on social media and through recent meetings. Also throughout the winter, leading up to the spring, I should say, we were reached out to by other municipalities and organizations in Northern Ontario as they saw our campaign and they wanted to follow suit with that sort of messaging. So we've been gracious to share some of our assets with them, and also we have been called upon to have a further interview with Ontario farmers from their campaign last year, their article that they wrote last year, and just speak to the evolution of this. And with that, we have requested that Chair Laurie Smith, do the interview with Courtney Denard, because she will have a good perspective and dialogue from the Ag Advisory and the agriculture community perspective in the matter. So she's the most fitting for this, and we're really happy to have all of these extra arms coming into the discussion and the awareness and PSA messaging around Share the Road.
So I think Rob is going to help us play the video.
Is everybody seeing my screen here?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect.
Where can you find farmers hard at work? Right here in your own backyard. Grey County, where farmers are your neighbors, feeding our families for generations, connecting us to our agricultural heritage, and traveling the same roadways as all of us. Like farmers, we're carrying precious cargo. Please slow down. We can all share the road. Waiting for slow-moving farm vehicles helps everyone. Be patient. Due to equipment and shoulder conditions, farmers may be unable to pull off the road. Give space. Farm vehicles may be carrying heavy, large loads and may need to swing wide to make turns. Help farmers get themselves and their equipment safely to the next field. Let's all share the road. Brought to you by Grey County.
So that was the video, and just as we were watching that, I did want to say we have been promoting that out through social media campaigns as well as boosted ads, and it has garnered a lot of attention. We have a reach of just under 16,000 people who have reached total through play. So people watching the whole minute video is 4,300. Post engagement, there's 7 comments, 4 clicks. So it's really had a lot of attention surrounding it too. And we are going to continue, Rob and I have discussed continuing to play this leading into long weekends and throughout the summer of just a reminder to visitors too. And we're going to have a geo-targeting around. So it's not just our areas reaching, we are putting it out, the messaging out to people who are looking to visit us on the weekends also.
Wonderful. The video is fantastic. And on behalf of all the farmers, I know we're very, very happy that you are spending all this time to develop these things. So thank you for doing that. The more places you can put that video, the better. I don't know how people get those sort of promotional things before, like YouTube videos, or I play a word game every day, and sometimes I get local events as a video before I play my word game on my phone. So I don't know how you get linked into that, but if your target is trying to find those people from outside our area, perhaps some low cost ways of sharing it in other vehicles would be interesting to see if you could do that. So again, thank you for all of your hard work. We really appreciate it. Gail, you have a comment?
I do. Yes, thank you. Through the chair. We talked about this last night, but we talked about signage, and I'm going to be quick because I know you want to wrap this up. So we had a recommendation from a citizen and a cyclist who wanted to have a car, a tractor, a person, and an ATV. And so I put it towards the group last night, and we don't allow ATV to our roads with the tractor and then the car and the individual, only because and somebody didn't like it being all three across, but I think people get the point that, you know, there could be a car or a tractor. So we're going to be putting it towards council, and then hopefully we can move forward and do some more purchasing, because we do have some roads out in our agricultural lands that don't have any share the road signs. And we are the ones that are being targeted for bicycle races. And we just had a big one last week. It was a qualifier. So, and some of the people did very, very well. So it's just because, and we did have police presence, but we did not have any road closures whatsoever, which I haven't heard any complaints as of yet. So I think it was well run this time. A year ago, it was a very negative cycling event. So having not heard anything, this is probably a very good thing. But it is a busy time in the agricultural to be having the cycling races and whatever. So the more we can get the media out there, and I'm just wondering if you could share that to the other municipalities, that because the Blue Mountains, we developed one many years ago, Share the Road, and ours is a little bit different than the one that you have. But I think if the more we share these, the better it is for everybody. And just looking at more signage, we have enough signs in our town. I forget what the number of signs was, somewhere between 1,500 and 2,400 signs, road signs. So, which is a lot. So, I think the more we get to Share the Road out there, the better everybody will be. Thank you.
Thanks, Gail. Yes, I'm just going to go to Savannah before I go to Blair, because I'm assuming Savannah is going to kind of answer some of Gail's comments. Savannah, please.
Sure. Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Excellent points, Gail. And we have been working on the Share the Road campaign on the cycling side of things. So you're going to get some more signs, because our transportation team is busy putting them up in Northern Gray and Eastern Gray right now, and we'll focus on Southern Gray next year. But those are the ones that show cycling and a vehicle. We looked at doing multiple different things on the sign, but we chose to go with the sign that is part of the road book. And I can't remember what it's called. Pat would be so upset if I can't remember it.
Book 18, I think.
Book 18, that's right. So we went with the standard Book 18 sign, but we do still have the billboards up. We are keeping those up likely for the rest of the year. Still looking for billboards in eastern side of Gray. They are very difficult to come by because they're very popular. So still working on that, but we certainly want to have a multimedia approach to this, and continuing that message, and hopefully doing some geofencing outside of the area as we're trying to attract. So we've got a couple of really cool programs that were just launched last week with the Planning and Economic Development Advisory Committee and our economic development officers. So we can now share imagery, video, messaging that you can pick up from your own municipality and start to apply. So it's not a matter of reaching out and asking, you just take it, because we've got that in there now. So it's a really neat tool that I think will extend to this as well.
Perfect. Sounds great, Savannah. Blair?
Great program. Just curious, and maybe this is a question for the county folks. I've had some close calls last month, specifically on county roads, and I wouldn't say it's necessarily a fault of anyone's. It's just a few areas that it's very narrow roads, narrow guardrails, that kind of thing. Are there specific people, or is there a specific process to give feedback where there are hazardous spots on the road for equipment that probably should be dealt with?
I can speak to that, Chair. So probably the best is to contact our County Transportation Services staff. You can email roads@gray.ca is probably the easiest if you have email, and just flag any areas of that you have questions or concerns about that. And so that's a system where, once that's put in place, that we start tracking that, and then we'll send out transportation staff to review and assess some of those areas and see what can be done to try to mitigate any concerns. So that's, I would suggest roads@gray.ca. You can also go on our website. There's contact information there with our of how to get a hold of our county transportation services staff.
Thanks, Randy. Are you good, Blair? Perfect. Okay. I just have a couple things that I want to mention as well. Ontario, there's a news release. Ontario opens nominations for the 2024 Excellence in Agriculture Awards. There are many, there's 12 categories to apply to. And so we encourage, the nominations are being accepted until July 22nd, 2024. So if you don't have a copy of this press release, let me know or let Savannah know, and we will ensure that you get this. Encourage people within your organizations to perhaps apply. And I think we definitely need to celebrate all the great things that we do. Also, some events happening through our office. The Ontario Forage Council has a pasture walk this coming Saturday in Woodford, Dean Cober's farm. And so I would encourage you to go there if you have cattle or sheep and you pasture. Great information will be shared. Gray Soil and Crop has a crop walk on Tuesday, July 16th down in Proton Station. If you want to attend either one of those, call or email our office and we'll get you registered for those. Also want to tease you with the dates for Grey Bruce Farmers Week 2025, which will be our 59th annual. That we've decided to move it ahead because New Year's was encroaching more and more into the week. So January 8th to January 14th will be the dates for Grey Bruce Farmers Week. Same order as last year, except we've had to swap Ecological and Crops Day. Crops Day will be the Monday and Ecological Day will be the Tuesday because of a certified crop advisor meeting that will be in conflict. So if you have any questions about Grey Bruce Farmers Week, please let me know. I think that is all of the other business. I'm not seeing any hands. Simon, please.
So without trying to not make any commercials, but I did find that phone number from the company that brokers houses. If anybody's interested, I can give it to you. If not, you can phone me, whatever you wish.
Perfect. If anyone's interested, they can get in touch with you, Simon. If anyone needs Simon's email, I can provide that as well. Thank you, Simon. Gail?
Really quick, we did receive funding from OMAFRA for open fields, so we will be having our second open fields event. I forget the date now, but we're very excited to be moving forward with this, and we will be having 5 different farms or places open. So we're going to showcase some other agricultural events. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. And keep us up to date on that because we definitely want to check that out for sure. Okay, moving on to the next meeting date. Tara, I believe it's September 19th, 2024.
It is. Thank you.
Wonderful. So if no one has anything more to share, Simon, your hand's still up, but I'm assuming that you're done.
I could make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you very much. So adjourning at 11:05. Sorry that we went over a little bit. We shared a lot of information today. Thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you again in September, and in between now and then, please stay safe out there and as cool as possible. Have a great day, everyone.